Good morning. How are you? I'm not exactly sure if it's morning for you or midday or evening. Let's take a moment to look at how do we analyze an SAT math problem. There are a lot of useful lessons to understanding the design of the SAT math test. Now, there's no substitute for understanding and learning all the math concepts, learning how to execute and apply those concepts. But this section is almost like the turbo boost to help you do that more effectively. Usually we cover these techniques in our tutoring classes, but every student should know some of these basic lessons. First, every SAT math problem is designed to be answered in about 30 seconds. If you're using the right technique and approach, they're not designed to be terribly time-consuming, like an AP problem or some more complicated problem you might have in an honors class in school. So keep that in mind as we learn some techniques to take advantage of that. Number two, I'm surprised how students often don't incorporate a vertical scan, a quick review of the answer choices as they solve. There's an enormous wealth of information in the answers. Take advantage of it. It should open up new techniques. You should understand what different methods and strategies you can use to approach the problems. For example, what we call back solving or plugging in your answer choices. Know what problems and types of problems you can apply that to. That can help you avoid more complicated formal solution approaches and save time on the exam in many cases. Additionally, guess and check. That can help a lot. If answers are in variables, in many cases, plugging in a number will help you more easily, intuitively get to the answer. However, be cautious. You need to know the weaknesses of each technique. For example, students might plug in a number and it works on the first answer and think they're done and circle it. Well, that's not exactly how the technique works. You need to learn it, which is why we cover it in some of our tutoring classes. You would have to continue down. There might be another answer that checks for the answer you guessed, in which case you probably have to guess again. So make sure not to fall into the typical traps, something you also need to know as you learn these techniques. Estimation is another powerful skill students rarely employ and oftentimes don't seem to have been taught. It can help you save time, it can help you check your answers, get to more consistently correct answers as a result. It's a bit skill, a bit art. It requires some mental math and familiarity with numbers, but it's one of the more effective techniques to use on the exam. In fact, there really is no need for a calculator on the SAT math exam. In almost all cases, even the calculator exam, you can do faster if you know what you're doing without it and you develop the right skills. So take a few minutes, read the following material, learn different techniques, try to incorporate them properly into your practice, and if you feel you need help, by all means, contact us or get the appropriate support you can find, because understanding the exam design and these turbo boosts to help you work through the exam more effectively can be really useful in most cases. There is no such thing as a silly mistake. How many times have you heard students say, "Oh, I got that wrong. I just didn't read that question right." Or, "Oh, I just made a sign error." Guess what? They're going to do it again on test day, no matter how hard they try to pay closer attention, because it'll be really important on that day. Why? Because they don't develop the right habits. You need to develop the right habits. Do you have a process to answer questions? Have you even thought about it? It's really important to develop habits and a process. It usually begins with understanding the question and the conditions of the question. How many times have you answered a question and forgot to convert units? Or said, "Oh, I answered the sum of all integers and they wanted the odd integers," and you never underlined the condition even? How good are you at setting up the problem, identifying the math concepts? This is half the battle. Now, this comes with practice of the different types of problems, which we introduce you in the course, so you will get a lot of that during your training. But how about the vertical scan we just talked about? We just referred to it as a way to apply different solution methods. It's also an excellent way to identify potential mistakes that you'll make. Many of the answer choices might be the same numbers but positive, negative signs. Watch out for sign errors. or they might be reciprocals of each other. Watch out for dividing or multiplying. Maybe you want to record your units to make sure you get it right. How many times have you rushed through a problem in about a minute and you solved it and you feel great and you circle X, what you solved for, only to realize, wait, they were asking for 3X, or what's the change in X? Did you read that last line? Not the whole problem setup like the long paragraphs in the calculator section, but literally the last line before the question to identify what they want answered? All that works for naught if you don't. You're not answering the right question. I can't tell you how many times I have elite scorers who are years ahead of the concepts covered on the SAT, and they come back and they say, well, why didn't I get an 800 when they sat down to take the test? I only got 600 something or 700. Well, that's because of your habits and your process. In their case, their mistakes are probably at least half or the majority of process or silly mistakes. There is no such thing as a silly mistake on the exam if you don't address your process. For most students, a way to pick up free points before you even learn more math concepts. Think about it. Think about your process. Can you improve your score by developing better habits? In most cases, I think the answer is yes.